Hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation, Leveraging the Cloud with Service Virtualization. I'm Jeff Hughes with Broadcom, and I will be moderating this session. Today we're joined by Carl Miller and Beverly Mindel, and they're going to tell us some exciting things about how to use service virtualization in your cloud environment. So if you're doing migrations of applications to the cloud, perhaps you're involved in a digital transformation type of project, then you want to pay close attention because service virtualization provides a lot of capability that's going to help you through these transitions and migrations. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Beverly Mindel, who is going to give us some presentations, and then after that, she'll hand it to Carl. Go ahead, Beverly.
Thanks, Jeff. Hello, everyone. So let's talk about using service virtualization in the cloud. I'll start with kind of a brief introduction, and then we'll jump in and talk about, well, how can I actually install service virtualization in the cloud? What are the benefits that I get from that? We'll also talk about the VSE, that's what we call the Blaze Meter VSE, the capabilities that are there that can help with your cloud strategy in terms of leveraging service virtualization in the cloud. After both 2 and 3, we'll have a demo, and then we'll discuss what are the next steps for you to get started so that you can begin using service virtualization in the cloud and answer any questions that you have. So without further ado, let's jump in. And for a little background, right, when talking with our customers, I've noticed that a lot of them have a cloud strategy in place. They're looking at how they can move their applications to the cloud, how they can leverage cloud capabilities, and they want the same benefit from service virtualization as well. And part of that has to do with how it's incredibly important that your applications perform the way customers expect them to perform. In fact, it's very costly when they don't. It's estimated to be, $5,600 a minute for when an application is kind of down or not responding. And the advantages of cloud with the automation that you can have in place and the ability to scale up as you need during peak performance times can really help. And so customers are looking to leverage how they can utilize, cloud technology to help with that. And ensure that their performance continues. And so when folks are looking to cloud, they're often looking to see and gain some of the benefits that they would get from cloud. So those can include availability. That's a big strength, whether it's geographical availability, whether it's the ability to scale up and down as needed. So again, it's not just scaling up, it's also being able to say, okay, now it's not my peak utilization, how can I scale down? How can I have the disaster recovery and everything that I need as well? So all of these are benefits that you can see from cloud. And then with that, oftentimes folks are looking to also limit cost. Now, I kind of noted that automation is required. So if you are going to take what you have probably on-premise today and just uplift it into the cloud, that's likely to be a lot more expensive. The idea of being able to, utilize the resources as you need them is really where you get the benefit and the cost savings from leveraging cloud. And so that does require automation, but that also means you've got the automation for your environment so that you've got a lot of control over how it actually behaves and that it can handle the load and the situations that you need. And by utilizing the automation, right, and not having your own infrastructure, there is an ease to the maintenance that you have by utilizing cloud. And you also can decrease redundancy as well if you have to have all of that equipment on hand. And you can implement what you need when you need it. So it's not a guarantee that costs will be less, but it can be if you kind of design it with kind of cloud in mind when you're actually designing your cloud architecture. Carl, before I kind of move on, is there anything here you want to add or speak to?
The one thing is that really to remember about the cloud is that, well, it's cheaper to scale up and all that. You don't want to treat it like you do in-house systems. You really need to work on your automation and store your configurations in there, because otherwise it can be more expensive if systems are just left running all the time. So what I'm going to show you is how, and we're going to talk about in here, is how we can use the features of our different possibilities with containers and Blaze VSC to reduce your costs, because you can automate bringing systems up and bringing systems down.
Yeah, makes sense, Carl. Good point. Right. And so I think that's kind of a good segue as well into, so you've got a cloud strategy. You're probably also wanting to get the benefits from service virtualization, leveraging it in the cloud, whether that's because your applications are there and so you want it there as well for testing, or if you want to kind of get the benefits of scaling up and scaling down by utilizing containers. We can talk about what are your options for getting service virtualization in the cloud. And so we have kind of three main options. The first option would be just kind of our standard installer. You can run that standard installer anywhere, including the cloud. The disadvantage of this, though, right, is then you're just kind of, this is a quick and easy solution to getting it in the cloud if you need to test the cloud application quickly, but it doesn't necessarily give you the benefits that you would want, the advantages of utilizing cloud, because you're not getting the capability of spinning up and spinning down the containers as you need. You are just kind of doing a lift and shift. That said, if you kind of have a short-term, quick need that you need to get this, up and running fast, it is an option. Well, I think we're going to spend kind of more time talking about the other two options, the Docker Compose and the Kubernetes. And we'll actually kind of share, Carl will be sharing a demo soon with Docker Compose, kind of showing the benefits there of utilizing container technology. But basically today, we offer on 10.5 and 10.6, both Docker Compose and Kubernetes. With Docker Compose, we just have one solution. With Kubernetes, we have one that utilizes kind of node ports in terms of the communication or routing between the different service virtualization components, and then one that utilizes the contour ingress. And that, I believe, is available on 10.6.1. So we do have versions for when we update the images for our Docker and Kubernetes solution. So one advantage as well about utilizing Docker and Kubernetes is that you don't necessarily have to wait for a kind of main release to get fixes to vulnerabilities or defects, etc. We do continue to release new images, and you can download those images from the support portal. And so I'm going to let Carl kind of share a little bit more about thinking about what the setup might be, where you might house the different components, what the different options might be for setting up your service virtualization when you're thinking about setting it up in the cloud. And then we can move to a demo. So Carl, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. So what we're seeing here is a what I call a hybrid composite solution. So you could have in your internal data center, your enterprise dashboard. It needs an identity and access manager. You could have internally in your internal data center the registry portal, a performance VSE, some other VSEs, etc. There in your internal data center. But you can, within the cloud, you can either have, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner, virtual servers, where you have a registry as a VM kind of infrastructure, using infrastructure as a service. You will need a database there. And then you could have VMs for your virtual service environments, or you can also have container virtual service environments hooking into that registry. So this is especially good if you have agent-based virtual services, such as Java, or if you're virtualizing mainframe systems and you want to put those in the cloud also. With this, then you can have agent-based virtual services because you're running your broker in a registry. They're in the registry, and you can have your agent base. Now, if we look in the top right, you can bring up an entire system using Docker or Kubernetes in the cloud. You can bring up an entire system, and I'm going to show that. Bring those up, run those systems for testing, run multiple virtual service environments, run multiple container simulators if you're doing application test. And then bring that whole environment down once you're done with it. With the cloud virtual servers, you would leave the registry portal, optional broker up. It needs to have a database there. It needs to have a database. But then you could have all your virtual service environments. They could be containers. You could have a, say, semi-permanent performance VSE, either as a virtual machine or as a container if you're doing continuous automated testing, continuous deployment. Finally, in the right-hand side, what you'll see is the BlazeMeter OPL. This is where you've created an on private location, and you bring up the Blaze VSEs. Those come up as containers. They do not connect into the enterprise dashboard. The only thing is you can also have this be as a bridge so that in BlazeMeter you can see all of your pieces. So any quick, and that's pretty much the different ways that you can do it. The enterprise dashboard, as I said, could be in your internal data center. It could also be up in the cloud also if you want to keep it up there in the cloud. However, we do not provide that or the broker as a container. Those need to be virtual machines up in the cloud somewhere. This runs in AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, all of the major cloud platforms. Beverly?
Thanks, Carl. I believe we also have another example. I didn't know if you wanted to go into this one as well.
Yeah, this is one where it's just everything is in the cloud. You've got your enterprise dashboard, identity access manager in the cloud. And then it's up in the cloud as virtual machines. And then you're bringing up multiple registries, as you can see on the top. You're bringing up multiple registries in containers, and you're giving those teams containers to do their virtual service. So, and once again, you can link in BlazeMeter. You can use BlazeMeter either as the Blaze VSEs, or you can use it as the in BlazeMeter, you can actually link into an enterprise dashboard and see all the VSEs there. So we're giving you self-service through the BlazeMeter interface, but the Blaze VSE allows you to bring those up and bring them down very quickly. Okay.
And I just want to add, I think that this adds a lot of flexibility. So you have the advantage, right, of being able to say, I would like, part of my setup that's connected to the enterprise dashboard to, have containers that I bring up and bring down on demand, and I can bring up my setup. And so that could be a big part of my environment, but I could still have things connected to my enterprise dashboard that might still be on-premise. So depending on what I'm testing and where I'm testing and what I need. This really allows for the flexibility that to be able to containerize what you need, whether it's the whole, kind of end-to-end environment from the registry, past the enterprise dashboard, so from the registry kind of down, or maybe I'm just containerizing, the VSCs that I need, and I'm going to have those spin up and spin down on demand, and maybe I have, a registry that stays on premise as well. So you've got kind of the capabilities to kind of pick and choose based on how you need your environment to handle, but still when you're thinking about the specific cloud environment, you can design it with what you need in mind, and so that components don't have to stay running all the time. And I think next, as Carl alluded, he's going to actually demo that. Carl, I'm going to let you kind of, before we jump into the demo, walk through kind of what you're going to talk about, and then we can actually see this live.
Yeah. So in the first example, I'm going to show you how you can do Docker Compose. This is how you can do a virtual set up a whole virtual VSC virtual environment in the cloud. We'll deploy we'll set up the environment. It comes up with some VSCs. We'll deploy a virtual service to the VSC, run test, remove the virtual service, and stop the VSC. So that means I get to share. So sharing screen. Okay, can you all see my screen now?
We can. Or
Great.
I can.
This is the documentation, dev test with Docker Compose. It is actually really good. It does walk you through how it gives you the prerequisites and how to run the containers and everything. So it's a very nice setup. Basically, what you need is you need a Docker, a machine with Docker installed. And so I have that right here. It's a little bit small, so I'm going to modify that just a little bit, change settings real quick. Appearance, change, let's go up to 12, say okay, and say apply. Is that a little better?
Yeah, that looks better.
Great. So currently right now I have no containers, but I do have Docker installed on this. So once you've downloaded our Docker Compose and untard it, as which the instructions give you a great way to do that, then you simply can run this command here. This is install SV Docker. I'm telling it where my enterprise dashboard is. This is DT106ED on 1506. I'm telling it to instantiate 2 virtual service environments, 1 coordinator and 1 simulator. It's going to check for the Docker image. It's going to start creating these. Create these image. If you didn't have the latest, it would pull them down. And here we go. And so now we're here. Now, it's going to take a minute or two for these to get started. However, what I have just done is basically I have just created what you see up here in the right-hand side. I've created a container registry, a container portal, 2 container VSEs. Sorry, I didn't create 4. A coordinator and a simulator. There's another little piece in here called the config server. But just with one command, I'm able to bring this all up and get it started. So we're going to wait just a minute or two for this to come up, and then we'll see it. But then what we're going to do is look over here, and what I have is a Jenkins pipeline. I'm going to retrieve files from my GitHub. I'm going to get what VSTs are available. If the virtual service I'm trying to deploy is running, I'm going to delete that. Then I'm going to deploy the virtual service, and I'm going to run a test against an application that will use that virtual service as a backend. Then we'll issue the commands to stop the test. And what we're using for this is we're actually using the SV pipeline, the SV plugin. So if you're going to do Jenkins, we do offer the plugin for this installed. And this would be the CA Service Virtualization plugin. So that's the one you want to use for that. So if we go back and we'll check on our Docker. So I will tell you that the portal will take a little longer to start. And the one thing you do want to know is when you try this out, you're going to come to our support portal. You're going to come in. Go to product downloads. Easiest way to find it is to type in service V and you'll get service virtualization. The key thing is when you're going to do one of these Dockers is you'll open this up and select the Docker install, but you want to look for one of these that has the token because you will need this to be able to log into the repo and pull down the images. So and it says it's up and healthy now. The portal's up and healthy. So at this point, we'll go into the, so it just comes up on 1507, just like everything else. I'm going to log in. And if we go down to monitor and we go to server health, you'll see I have a registry, a coordinator, a VSE, 2 VSEs up, both of these VSEs up. And if we expand this, we'll go to the VSE and VSE1. One thing to note is that it brought up the Docker virtual service environments, and it brought them up to listen on certain ports. It brought them up to listen on certain ports, and it does talk this in the documentation. So you need to just be a little bit aware of what ports, but you can set this. You can easily set this in the configurations. It's so that you can have the ports, you can have it respond on the ports you want. So like this one, you can see it's 2050 to 2099, and this is 20,000 to 20,049. So just this allows you to assign ports so that teams can only utilize certain ports. So we've got the VSC here, and we'll go back to my Docker Compose, this Jenkins, and I'm going to click Build with Parameters. I can put this into this. I'm going to go to the first VSC. I'm going to deploy 2 MAR files pulled down from my GitHub, and then run a test. So let's click Build. And we're pulling this down. It's deploying the virtual service. And they're already up, and it just got transactions because it runs kind of that fast. So if we look here, you see it's running the test. I've got a little delay in there on that test. Let me refresh this. I've got 6 transactions in here. The next thing is these are going to come offline. We're going to stop these virtual services, and they're going to come offline. Now, and as you can see, they're both. Now, what you could do is you could stop these virtual services as well during the test to see how the application that uses those virtual services responds to those services stopping. So that's why we have that start and stop feature. You can use this very effectively for chaos testing to see how your application responds. Now we're going to get in to this, and it's undeployed. So if we go back here and we refresh this, you can see they're gone. So very efficient, and at the same time, I could now bring down the whole environment if I wanted to. So with that, I've got this environment, it's up. This is the Docker one that's up. But at the same time, I can also go to I can go here and have a VSE host. Let me make this a little bigger also. Change settings, appearance, change. I think I made that 12. Say okay, say apply. Here we go. And I don't have any Docker, any running right now. However, what I can do there we go, is I'm going to add another VSE because I'm going to my DT106 Docker registry. I'm going to add another VSE named VSE Team 42. So this will allow you, so you can, once you bring it up, you can add more to it. As you can see, I've gotten an ID back here. And if we pop into here and we look at server health, and we do a refresh, come up in a moment. There we go. Team 42 is coming up, and it's here. And as you can see, it's on a different host. These are on the local one. This is running on a different host. So I could bring up another VSE for another team and say I have a break fix needed. I need Team 42 because, as everyone knows, 42 is the answer to everything. And you can bring that up and give that team that virtual service environment. They can run their tests they need, and then you can drop that and make better efficient uses of your resources. Now, the other thing I can do is, if I look at another VSC another registry I have, connected to the same dashboard, this is a different one. It's running on a different registry, looks similar, but I could also come in here and on my VSC host, so I could just have a big virtual service environment host, and I could run another, I can have another container here that's actually even going to a different virtual service environment registry. So this is the virtual service environment I just brought up with that Docker command. I'm running it on here. And so you can have a host and go back in and mix and match, as I said. So showed you bringing up the cloud with the Docker Compose. I also showed you adding another virtual service environment to that one. So I just dropped another one in there, just using another one. And then I had a set of virtual services, and I brought up another VSC to show you how we can do both of those. Okay, that's it for Docker Compose.
Thanks, Carl. And folks, as you could see, it just took matter of minutes to be able to kind of define, spin up, the containers that you need, spin them back down. You definitely get the advantages of leveraging the cloud when utilizing the containers.
Yeah, the one thing I would add is I wanted to show you how bringing up the containers and how simple the commands were on the Docker. Normally, I would automate those so that I could bring the environments up and down and have them only up as long as I needed. We've got great APIs and with the Docker containers also, so you can control those facets of it. The key, as I said, to the cloud is automate it. If it's just like if you go into a conference room, you turn on the lights when you go in and you turn off the lights when you leave.
Absolutely, makes sense. And I think that's a good segue as well to talk about BlazeMeter VSC. And so I know when folks hear BlazeMeter, they're probably thinking performance testing capability, and that is where BlazeMeter got its start, with capabilities with performance testing. But it's so much more than that. It's got a lot of different types of testing, kind of thinking about testing end to end, and how to improve testing processes. We're not going to focus on all of the capabilities that are available in BlazeMeter and how it can help you and how it's kind of an end-to-end testing solution. Right now, we're going to focus specifically on the BlazeMeter VSC. And as the name suggests, the VSC is basically a virtual service environment where you can run the virtual services that you create with service virtualization, dev test. And so it's just the environment to run those virtual services. Now, the difference with the BlazeMeter kind of setup is, the standard connection is you have your asset catalog. This is where you would store your virtual services, your MAR files, et cetera. And you could connect via the agent to the enterprise dashboard, which then has to connect, that enterprise dashboard has to connect to the registry, which has to connect to the VSCs, right? That's kind of our standard service virtualization setup today. But with the BlazeMeter VSC, you can remove the need to have to connect to all those downstream components. You actually don't need to have an enterprise dashboard or a registry, and rather directly, basically you've got an agent that installed where you have Docker running, right? And you are able to bring up the VSC container that's kind of self-contained. It doesn't need to talk to the registry or anything else. So this is also minimizing kind of the infrastructure that you need, and it's kind of a simple, easy cloud-native solution. You can run, that agent in your environment wherever you need it. So you can have them run either in their cloud or in what we call a private location. So it could be, on-premise, where it's bringing up that container wherever you're expecting it to be in terms of where you need to test. The agent does need to have internet connectivity to be able to communicate to BlazeMeter, but it is a one-way communication. So it's very secure and kind of easy to bring up and down your VSC environment. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the benefits, but obviously one of the benefits, if you look at the infrastructure diagram, is obviously not needing as much infrastructure in order to be able to support running your virtual services in your VSC environment. So what does, in case this is like a new concept, the BlazeMeter VSC, I want to talk a little bit more about what it is. So it is the same VSC that you know and love in virtual services, in our virtual service product today, and it is able to deploy your MAR files. So again, it's the same virtual services that you use to create. You can just think of it as another type of VSC. It is container native, kind of cloud native, and you do have the capability of defining whether or not the VSC is going to be a performance VSC or whether it's going to be a functional VSC. Licensing works the same way as licensing works today. So we measure concurrent performance VSCs, and we also measure transactions, transactions for transaction packs. And based on your entitlement, you will see how many concurrent performance VSCs you have running as a Blaze VSC. You'll also be able to see how many transactions have been run. You get that data out of BlazeMeter, just like you get out of the enterprise dashboard today. And you would just, add that information together. How, total number of transactions, obviously the number of transactions run on functional Blaze VSCs, plus the number of transactions run on your on-premise that you see in your enterprise dashboard. So licensing isn't different. It works the same way that it does today. But it's got a lot of advantages in terms of the ability to really allow for flexible deployment. It really, you've got, in terms of upgradability, right? Anytime a new release is available, you can pull the latest images. It kind of makes it easy. One other thing is that the VSC itself will shut down when no virtual services are running on it. So when the VSC doesn't start up until you deploy a virtual service or a MAR file, and it will immediately shut down if there are no more virtual services running on it. So if you've defined in your tests, I'd like these virtual services to come up, and then the test is over. I want these virtual services to come down, to stop. We will automatically manage starting and stopping the VSC as well as part of that process. Similarly to the VSC today, you do have the ability to define any sort of dependencies or third-party jars, et cetera, that you might have. In fact, we actually offer an ability to see that via both the, like a UI. Everything that we do through the UI also can be done through the APIs as well. But really managing those, third-party jars and dependencies can be done similar to the way the VSC does today, except for we've added a little bit more to make it easier to manage. And locations and update the VSC. So you can define, for example, the locations that you need. So those private locations where you would like the VSCs to start and stop, you've got all of that flexibility to do so. One disadvantage of the BlazeMeter VSC, just to be aware, is that it does not support agent-based services. So anything that relies on, broker communication, the agent-broker communication also has to go through the registry. And so these virtual services do need to be run like Carl showed today, you could utilize, the native service virtualization Docker containers. Those can support that, but for utilizing the Blaze VSC, it will support all other virtual services except for the agent-based. Carl, is there anything else that you want to add before we kind of jump into the demo and you kind of share what we're going to go through next?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I will let you take it away then.
Okay, so I'm going to, as Beverly's showing right there, I'm going to basically show you how you set up a new private location, create the agent, deploy a virtual service, and stop the virtual service and manage the VSE environment. So let me start sharing. Okay, so I'm in here in my BlazeMeter environment. This is my mock services. I have one up running in a current OPL right now. What you do to set up a private location is you do need to, you come in here to settings. I came into settings here and I go to workspace and I'll go to private locations. So I've got a couple up and running. I've got to do a little cleanup on some others. Copy that name. And I'm going to click add a private location. Location name, I'll give it 2. I'm going to make this a shared one. Advanced, you could do advanced. I generally just leave it at default right now. This is if you're more for once you get into. So next, in this case, I need mock services here. System recommended storage. You can do a service virtualization bridge also. So that way it's connected. You can use that to connect to your traditionals, what we call Service Virtualization Enterprise Edition. So if I click create, we get this and it says has no agents. So if I click add an agent, I'm going to give this a name. Address, I'm not going to give it an address. And if I click create agent, it says a new agent has been installed. You see, I get a Docker's command, a Kubernetes, or a Windows command. So in this case, I'm going to simply.
Just for clarity, just Docker and Kubernetes are utilized here.
Yes. Click copy command. And then I'm going to go down here to this Docker environment I've created. It's just a Linux box running in Google Cloud. And I've reached my pull limit. So I'd have to log in and get that. That's because we do a little too much here. But even if we had been able to pull it and bring it down, it's going to take a few minutes. So I'm going to show you what it looks like here. So that's got to authenticate and upgrade to the Docker. So yeah, sorry about that. But if we go down here and look at this one, which is the other OPL that I have, let me get rid of that, close that, and that will come up in a little bit once I get that. but currently I'm looking at this one, and as you can see, it's got the heartbeat a few seconds ago. That's this machine right here. And if you look at the Dockers that are running on it right now, it's got the crane and it's got the blaze meter VSE. And I'm going to show a little later that this one right here, this container will go away once we are no longer utilizing it. So if we go back to my mock source.
Possible, when you were sharing, can you increase the size so that it's a little easier for us to see?
Which one? This one?
That,
yep.
And also, I don't know if we can also kind of increase it in the browser too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that better?
I think
or should
so.
we go
I think that looks
better?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay, so we've got these up. Let's see if I can add that just a little bit, make that just a little bit bigger. There we go. So this is up and running. I've got my mock service. I've got one service deployed to that location right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and show how we can use the APIs again. Where we can actually bring up and deploy. So I'm retrieving some files, including the virtual service MAR files from GitHub. I'm establishing my credentials for the API calls to BlazeMeter. I'm getting my locations, which gives me my harbor and ship IDs. I'm then going to deploy my mock services and run tests against that. I'm actually deploying 2 mock services. So I'll click this and click build. And we'll go through and then we'll show some other features of Blaze VSE. There we go. And if we start going in here, go back to mock services, I now have both my mock services up. They're both coming up. They're going to start running. They're both running. Let's see if we've got any transactions yet. No requests available yet. So it's running that test. Oops, analytics. Should I click? There we go. So this is where you'd see the request coming in from the tests. But I've got these 2 up. So what you can do with these is you can, when you delete these, as you notice, we've got this, we've got the Blaze VSE is up and running. So I was able to deploy those, run tests. And now if I click on delete mock service, I'm going to delete every mock service from this location. Successfully deleted them. So now if we go back in here and we run this, you'll notice that the Blaze VSE is down. So if there are no mock services there are no virtual services being deployed to it, you don't, it won't be up and running, won't be consuming. You can also deploy multiple virtual services at once. So if I go in here to MAR files and I click on this one, ATM search to MAR, and this one, these two, and I say deploy, I get to select a location, and advanced settings gives you the think time scale, concurrent capacity, mode. You can do all that. And I'm going to give this a tag of dbank. There it is, dbank, and say deploy. The mock service is being deployed. There we go. They're waiting to run. So with this, and this is all available as a command, through APIs, as Beverly mentioned. That's everything you just saw me do, did through APIs, and that's actually how I did it through the Jenkins job. I used the API commands for that. So if we go back asset catalog, just do quick, that one's running, and this one will be soon too. And then if we go back down here and look in there, you see it's restarted the Blaze VSE because we did deploy. Very efficient use of resources. You can achieve the same thing with in the SV Enterprise Edition. You just have to do the automation with either the containers, Docker, or Kubernetes. So that's it for the Blaze VSE. One thing I would like to say is we do have good, oh, she's on to next steps. Do look at the documentation. Do look at the documentation on Docker Compose, Docker for Kubernetes. And if you look at the Docker for Kubernetes, there are two examples. Yeah, there she has it. We actually even walk you through deploying it on AWS EKS.
Absolutely, and I want to reiterate, right? We have examples. We also have some blogs and some information that can help you get started for your next steps as you're looking to set up service virtualization in the cloud. So please take a look at those next steps and the documentation that we have, because it can really help you get started. Additionally, I wanted to share that every month, the second Tuesday of the month, we host office hours. And so this is an opportunity to come by, ask questions. It's similar to the community in that you can kind of ask questions that are not necessarily a support question, but something that you need help with, or you want to get advice, you want to ask the experts. But rather than have to kind of wait or chat, it's real time, and you can actually talk to a person, so you can clarify, you can actually have a conversation. And so we hope that if you have follow-up questions, well, of course, you're always welcome to use the resources that we have today, like the community, support, etc. We also want to invite you to office hours. And you can sign up and see the option to sign up via the service virtualization community. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. So I know we covered a lot today, sharing how service virtualization can be used and leveraged in the cloud. And so I'm sure folks have questions. And Jeff, I don't know if there's a best practice in terms of how they can access these.
Yeah, go ahead and enter your questions in the chat or the question area of your screen. I'll start off and ask a question. So let's say I have service virtualization installed and I am new to BlazeMeter. How do I get started using BlazeMeter if I want to try out the VSE functionality in BlazeMeter?
That's a great question. So when you say if you're new to BlazeMeter, if you have a BlazeMeter account, then that's one thing. If you don't have a BlazeMeter account, you just go to blazemeter.com and you sign up with your corporate email address and create an account. From then, you can reach out to either myself or Kausta Bordy, and we will make sure that you have the service virtualization capabilities enabled so that you could get started. And from there, it's as simple as what Carl showed, where you're setting up that initial private location. You've got, in the documentation and those links we've shared the minimum system requirements for the machine, so like the Linux machine or something that you might have, where you have Docker installed, and you just, install the agent and, deploy your first virtual service. So from there, you can kind of get started in minutes, but we do need to enable that capability. So sign up for an account and let us know.
Great, thank you, Beverly. Another question is in regards to the virtual catalog, where these various services are stored. Where does that catalog reside? Where does that actually exist?
Yeah, so BlazeMeter has a virtual service, an asset catalog, right, that I think you're referencing. And so that you can actually, through the sync, we didn't show this, but you can sync to your service virtualization environment. You can actually pull the virtual services that are deployed to a VSE on hand. The on-premise service virtualization also has a virtual service catalog, and that would be wherever customers have installed it. So you do have that capability of that asset catalog of storing and managing. The one in BlazeMeter does not need to only be running. So as Carl showed in the demo today, he was deploying a couple of different MAR files that were not running at the time, whereas the asset catalog that we have on the service virtualization on-premise is a component of service virtualization that does rely on it being deployed currently to a VSE.
All right, thank you very much. We had another question that has come in. Very recently, I reached the product team to check the feasibility of having dev test on AKS, and I was told Broadcom doesn't support dev test in AKS now, but I see Kubernetes available here. Can you clarify?
So, Carl, I'm going to rely on you, but I know our example with Kubernetes is with AKS. I'm wondering, and when you were told that we didn't have it, we used to have kind of native images on Amazon that you could kind of get from Amazon that you didn't have to install yourself, and that we don't have anymore. This was not something that was highly utilized, but in terms of doing the install yourself or utilizing our images, that capability is there. So I'm not quite sure when you reached out and was told this. You're welcome to contact me directly, so I'll go back to the first page with my name. It's just my first name period, my last name at broadcom.com. But Carl, is there anything else you want to add there that maybe can add some clarification?
It might be that we don't have it up in the marketplace. We don't have a version up in the marketplace, but but yeah, we're we do have that. We're supporting AWS EKS. Did you say AKS? I couldn't. I'm not sure if it was dev test in AKS.
That could have been the clarification.
Yeah. 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 I'm not sure what AKS is. We do support an EK in the managed Kubernetes service. So I'm not sure what AKS is. Sorry, I just did a Google and it said, "Do you mean AWS EKS?"
So, is this Azure maybe?
It might be. Oh, maybe that's Azure.
Yeah, and I would try it out. I know our example is EKS, but that doesn't mean that you can't use. I don't believe that there should be a problem, and Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, using the images. I know we've kind of defined the example with Amazon, but I'm not
Yeah,
aware of an issue.
I'm not either.
Okay.
I do see
But
we have a few.
we'll double check on that. Yeah.
So, okay, some of them are kind of similar, right? So the question having to do with how can BlazeMeter support, JMS, and then another question about how to enable kind of third-party jar files, for example, IBM and so in the cloud and containers. So I'll start with BlazeMeter, and then Carl, maybe you can handle kind of service virtualization containers. But with BlazeMeter, we did have, and we didn't show this, but there's an environment section where literally you can just define, hey, these are the jars that I want to include. All of the capabilities, again, that you can do through the UI, you can also do programmatically through the API. So that's available. And then, Carl, do you want to kind of share a little bit? I mean, service virtualization should function kind of the same way it does today. Do you want to add any more context there on adding third-party jars?
No, it functions the same way. You can use JMS protocol. I've already done that several times. That's a question that I see in the question section, comment section. Does BlazeMeter JMS protocol VSE? That is, yes, it will support JMS, MQ, Rabbit, Kafka. I've pushed all of those into the Blaze VSE using those. So you just have to put the jars using the environment tab.
And then what about if you need to put the jars in for the containers when you're starting those up? Any advice there?
Yeah, that you can simply map a drive. You map a hot deploy drive to that. You map a hot deploy. You map hot deploy in the Docker host. You map a drive there. You have a drive in the Docker host, and then you map a drive in the container. There are some examples we have in the communities. In the communities I've seen for doing that, and I think it also does it in the Docker Compose. So you can easily do that in the containers.
All right. Well, thank you, Carl, and thank you, Beverly, for an excellent presentation. We have gone over a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and close. Just as a reminder, this webinar has been recorded, and each of you will receive an email with a link to the webinar shortly after the presentation. So again, we want to thank you for joining us today. We hope this has been helpful. And we look forward to having more webinars over the next couple of months, so look for the email announcement and the announcement on the community page. And with that, we'll close the webinar for today. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone.